There is a weariness that sleep cannot soothe. It does not dissolve into the pillow or fade with the passing of an ordinary day. It is a heavier exhaustion, deeper, a kind of numbness that settles in silence and watches us from within. You feel it when trying to think clearly, but thoughts slip away. When seeking a decision, only to find repetition. When longing to create, but everything feels stale. It is as if the soul were drowning in its own body, as if the spark were still there, but buried under ashes. And the strangest part, no one seems to truly notice. Life goes on, as if automation had won, as if living exhausted were now the new way of being alive. But is it really? Is this fatigue merely mental? Or is it the reflection of a deeper collapse? A collapse of the ego itself. The mind tries, but can no longer sustain what it carries. Deciding has become a burden. Imagining, an unbearable effort. Even the simple act of starting something new feels like it requires energy that is no longer there. We are not just tired, we are disconnected. Science calls this ego depletion, a phenomenon where the mind, after constant self-control, choices, and adaptation, collapses. A cognitive short circuit where the circuits that sustain our willpower shut down. But what exactly is being depleted? Not the soul, for it is inexhaustible. Not the body, which still moves. It is something between the two, something that believes it is in control. The ego. The ego is like a lens that defines how we perceive reality. It says, I am this, I do that, I decide. But this lens is not the I, nor is it the light. It is merely a filter, a construct trying to maintain order amid the chaos of existence. From childhood, we are trained to strengthen this structure. Identity, willpower, goals, self-control, performance. All this builds a robust, functional ego, but also a fragile one. Because the more the ego convinces itself it is the author of the story, the further it drifts from the silent source of peace, creativity, and true freedom. Awareness. Daniel Kahneman, Nobel laureate and a leading figure in cognitive psychology, warned us, our decisions are not as free as we believe. Much of what we choose is automatic. And when we must decide with clarity, the energy cost is immense. Thinking demands energy, resisting impulses even more. Planning, choosing, battling daily temptations, all consume an invisible fuel. But where is this energy? Where does it come from? And why does it seem increasingly scarce? Even after decades of study, science has no definitive answer. Perhaps because it is looking in the wrong place. There is an energy that does not deplete. It does not depend on neurotransmitters or brain glucose. It is the same energy that moves the cycles of nature, guides the wind without a map, keeps the heart beating as we sleep. The ancients called it chi, prana, ruach, nefesh. Every culture had a name, but the principle remains the same, a vital source that does not belong to the ego, but to being. Ego depletion, then, may not be a problem. Perhaps it is a call, a necessary collapse, a rupture in the false center so the true center can emerge. What if what you call you is just a fragment, a limited reflection, an exhausted mask? Who are you when the ego falls silent? For too long, we were led to believe the ego is who we are, the voice narrating our days, the name we respond to, the story we tell ourselves. But the ego is only a bridge, not the shore. It is necessary, to a point. It helps us navigate the world, interact with matter, adapt to others' language. Yet when this bridge forgets, it is just a passage, and tries to become a dwelling, weariness sets in. Because no bridge was meant to be lived in, no transient structure can bear the weight of a simulated eternity. And that is precisely what we attempt, to build permanence in a space made of flow. Ego depletion begins subtly, first as unexplained irritation, then as a loss of focus. Later, an apathy disguised as ordinary fatigue. But beneath it lies a silent battle, a mind straining to hold 1,000 masks at once, unaware that in doing so, it drifts from its essence. Carl Jung called this ego inflation. When the ego believes itself the center of the psyche, it expands uncontrollably until it collapses. The collapse is inevitable, because whatever expands beyond its measure must one day implode. The ego is light, but a light that blinds if not anchored in shadow. Awareness is the source, but it is in the shadow that it recognizes itself. Like day finding meaning only when it knows night, like wakefulness feeling whole only after sleep. Such is the balance between ego and being, between control and surrender, between building and dissolving. But in a society obsessed with performance, dissolving is nearly a crime. Stopping is seen as weakness, and surrender misunderstood. Yet the ancients knew there is wisdom in rest, revelation in silence, healing in the shadow. Hermes, messenger of the gods, governed the paths between worlds, between the living and the dead, the conscious and the unconscious, between the ego and the soul. In Hermetic tradition, there is a key few use: as above, so below, and what is within shapes what is without. The ego, then, is what is below, functional, practical, visible. The soul is above, intangible, mysterious, infinite. The meeting point of the two is you, but not the you of documents, not the you in the mirror, the other you, the silent witness, the presence that observes, the awareness that remains, even as all else crumbles. The ego exhausts itself because it tries to uphold an unsustainable role. It seeks to control the uncontrollable, predict the unpredictable, be the author of life when it is only a page, and when this effort stretches too far, it yields. In the silence born of exhaustion, a new voice can be heard, not an audible voice, not one of words or promises, a vibration, an inner whisper, something that does not seek to conquer, prove, or win, but simply to be. This is the most delicate point of the journey, because here, many flee. They fill the void with more activity, replace silence with noise, substitute collapse with more control. But there are those who pause, and those who pause find. To return is not to retreat, it is to remember. To remember the ego is a tool, but not the center. To remember creativity does not arise from effort, but from allowance. That peace does not come from control, but from surrender. To return is to remember that being has always been here, even when the ego shouted, even when fatigue ruled, even when the mind wanted to quit. There was a presence, attentive, silent, alive. What if exhaustion is not an end, but the threshold of a new listening? What if what we call collapse is, in truth, an invisible birth? Not every ending is destruction. Sometimes it is an invitation to cross over, a silent passage few dare to enter. Ego depletion may feel like a fall, but it is truly an opening. A tear in the fabric of illusion, a portal to something forgotten, essence. Yet why do we avoid this portal so fiercely? Because it demands surrender, the release of the identity we've grown accustomed to, and letting go of what defined us, even when it hurt, can be terrifying. One must die, symbolically, to be reborn, dissolve to expand. In ancient mystery schools, this process was known. They called it the dark night of the soul, or initiatory death. The disciple was led into a state of confusion, silence, and inner collapse. Everything that upheld their sense of I was undone. Names, memories, beliefs, desires, all were placed in the fire of symbolic purification, not as punishment, but as preparation. For only those who traverse the void are worthy of hearing the voice at the center of being. Jung recognized this too. He said individuation, the soul's journey requires integrating the shadow, and that before becoming conscious, the ego must accept its limits. The limit is not failure, it is the door. In Kabbalah, there is a concept, Tzimtzum. It teaches that in the beginning, infinite light filled all, but for the world to exist, this light withdrew. An empty space was created, an apparent absence, so that being could manifest freely. It is as if the divine hid, so the human could emerge. And now, the return journey is the reunion with this light. But to reach it, one must cross the void. The ego, in this process, is like temporary clothing. And depletion is the moment the garment tears, not because it failed, but because its purpose is complete. In alchemy, this stage has a name, Nigredo, the phase of decomposition, absolute blackness, the moment the raw material dissolves, before transmutation. The alchemist knew, without putrefaction, there is no gold. Without symbolic death, no true rebirth. Ego depletion is the psyche's Nigredo, the moment old mechanisms collapse, mental structures dissolve, will falters, the eye bows. But this is precisely where true alchemy begins. Sometimes one must sleep to truly awaken. The ego lives in constant wakefulness. It seeks to control, plan, resist. But being reveals itself in silence, in listening, in surrender. Life may seem stagnant, but within, something germinates, like the seed that dies to become root, like the waning moon, preparing for fullness, like the silence of night, preceding the dawn's song. All is preparation, even weariness, even emptiness. They are mute oracles pointing to the center. And then, something begins to shift, not through effort, but openness, through surrender. Thought ceases, the need for control empties, and a new awareness arises. It does not speak, it does not judge, it does not demand. It simply observes, pure presence, being, what you were, before believing you were a name, a story, an ego. What remains when all you knew unravels? What if all this is grace in disguise? What if the collapse you fear is, in truth, the exact point where the sacred touches your life? What if ego depletion is the only real chance to awaken? The ego shouts. Being whispers. This is why so many live without hearing their soul. The noise of I fills all space. It wants to be right, to have answers, to control. But there comes a moment when the ego tires. It exhausts itself upholding an image, a role, a performance, and then it falls silent, not by choice, but by surrender. And in that silence, something alive begins to breathe, being, the presence that was always here, waiting for the mind to tire of playing God. We were taught freedom is choice, but there is a deeper freedom, the kind that arises when even choosing is no longer needed, when there is nothing left to prove, or anyone to prove it to, when life ceases to be a battlefield of desires and fears and becomes an open field where all blossoms effortlessly. This freedom only comes after collapse. When the ego yields, being expands, not the freedom of will, the freedom of being. This is not about destroying the ego, but restoring it to its rightful place, as a faithful servant, not a master, as a tool, not a prison. True awakening does not deny the world, but neither does it cling to it. It is a state of presence that moves through all, without attaching to any. The integrated being walks with feet on the ground, but eyes turned toward the invisible. It inhabits the body, without forgetting the soul, uses light, but knows the shadow, speaks, but understands silence. In Gnostic tradition, the highest truth cannot be spoken, it can only be lived. They called it Gnosis, a knowing that is not learned, but remembered. It lies beyond words, beyond concepts, beyond mind. This Gnosis only emerges when the ego quiets, when thought stops trying to understand, When the I releases control, it is silence that reveals the ineffable. Not knowing, that makes space for being. All you believed yourself to be dissolves. The image you projected, the story you repeated, the name you wore like armor, all unravels. And for a moment, it seems nothing remains. But then, you realize, what remains is what has always been. Pure, free, unconditioned. The void, full of presence. The absence of form, full of truth. The collapse of the ego is the birth of the real. The ego wants peace if the world obeys. Being is peace, even as all falls apart. The difference is subtle but profound. One is conditional, the other unshakable. One demands control, the other surrender. One struggles, the other trusts. This peace does not come from outside. It is not the result of circumstance. It is the silent center dwelling within each of us. It need not be created, only remembered. On the surface, you are an individual, separate, limited, fragile. But when the ego dissolves, this separation vanishes. The I expands and becomes part of the whole, no longer the thinker, but the thought itself, no longer the drop, but the ocean. This is true dissolution, not an end, but reintegration. The return to the one, to source, to the silence singing within all things. And so, life changes, not outwardly, but within. The same world, the same gestures, the same words. But now, all is heard with a different ear. All is seen with new eyes. You cease to be the author of the narrative and become the space where it unfolds. No more need for control, for certainty, for protection. Life flows, and you flow with it. What if the ego was never meant to be a villain, but merely a temporary guardian? What if now, in its exhaustion, you could finally cross the threshold it once guarded? So, when all ceases, when the mind quiets, when the I no longer insists on being the center, what remains? Not a name, not a memory, not an idea, just presence, silent, whole, unbreakable. What you were before learning to define yourself. What you will be even after all masks fall. What was never born and will never die. Being, unchanging, untouchable, eternal. Look back now, without judgment. See the ego, not as an enemy, but as a scar from the crossing. It protected you when necessary, built bridges, played roles, faced chaos. But now, its task is done. And like autumn leaves, what once defined you can now fall away, not in pain, but in gratitude. For it was the collapse that brought you here, the exhaustion that freed you from excess, the failure of I that opened you to the unspeakable. There is nothing to attain, nothing to conquer, nothing to become, only to remember, only to be, only to abide, without hurry, without struggle, without expectation. Breathe, feel. You need do nothing to be whole. You already are. Just remain. And from this place, this placeless place, life can finally be lived with lightness. Not the superficial lightness of escaping burdens, but the profound lightness of no longer identifying with them. You walk, but no longer carry the world. You feel, but no longer drown in emotions. You choose, but no longer chain yourself to outcomes. This is the free mind, free from noise, free from image, free from the compulsion to be someone. The mind resting in being. Imagine a night sky, empty, silent, infinite. Now imagine a star, bright, small, flickering. For so long you believed you were that star, an isolated point of light in the vastness. But now, you remember, you are the sky and the star, just a spark, born within you. If something in you grew quiet hearing these words, then it was not just listening, it was remembrance. And if this silence echoed in the depths of your soul, let it guide you, not toward more answers, but toward less noise. The path of being does not begin with effort, but surrender. No need to rush or understand everything now. Just stay attentive, open, and whenever the ego feels heavy again, remember, collapse is not the end, it is the beginning. If this message resonated with something within you, if this reflection stirred a quiet knowing, consider joining us at Free Mind. Here, every word is an invitation to return to yourself. Every video, a pause from the world's noise, a reminder that there is something in you that never depletes. Like, subscribe, but above all, remember yourself. The rest is silence.